Welcome back, Coinology. In the world of coin collecting, few items capture the imagination quite like the humble 1-cent coin, and today we turn our attention to the 1993 1 cent, a coin that might look ordinary to the untrained eye but carries with it an incredible history, fascinating design details, and for certain rare examples, a staggering market value that has shocked even seasoned collectors, with numbers reaching as high as $175 million, transforming what was once simple pocket change into one of the most talked about treasures in the numismatic community. And as we unravel this journey, we will go step by step into its weight, the symbols engraved on its surface, the artistry that went into its design, the historical context of its production, and ultimately why this coin has risen to such astronomical heights in collector markets around the globe. The year 1993 itself was a fascinating period in the history of United States coinage, and at this time the Lincoln cent had already been in circulation for decades, carrying the portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, a design first introduced in 1909 to commemorate the centennial of Lincoln's birth, making it the longest-running design in U.S. coin history. And by the time the 1993 penny was struck, Americans were already deeply familiar with this image. Yet collectors know that every single year can bring its own quirks, varieties, mint errors, and subtle changes that, over time, can transform a 1-cent piece from an everyday object into a multi-million-dollar rarity. And in the case of 1993, this reality is no different, as both Philadelphia and Denver mints produced these coins, each with small details that make them fascinating for collectors. When you hold a 1993 cent in your hand, the first thing you'll notice is its weight. And weight is one of the most crucial technical aspects of any coin, especially for those who want to understand whether they have a common example or a rare anomaly. Because beginning in 1982, the composition of the penny changed drastically, shifting from the traditional 95% copper alloy to a primarily zinc core with only a thin copper plating, and this meant that the weight dropped from about 3.11 grams for the earlier copper coins to approximately 2.5 grams for the post-1982 zinc cents. So for the 1993 cent, the official standard weight is 2.5 grams, though collectors sometimes find examples that are slightly heavier or lighter due to minting tolerances, and it is in these small deviations that extraordinary value can sometimes be found. Because an error coin struck on the wrong planchet, or a coin with off-metal composition, could be worth millions. Looking closer at the coin itself, we see Abraham Lincoln facing right on the obverse, with the word Liberty to the left and the date 1993 to the right, and above Lincoln's head arches the national motto, "In God We Trust," a phrase that has been part of American coinage for well over a century and carries deep symbolic meaning, representing faith, perseverance, and the cultural foundation of the United States. And although to many people it might seem routine, to collectors and historians the exact placement, spacing, and even thickness of these letters can carry enormous significance, because small minting variations such as doubling, weak strikes, or misalignments can lead to highly desirable varieties that auction houses love to showcase. On the reverse of the 1993 cent, we encounter the iconic Lincoln Memorial design, which had been in use since 1959 when it replaced the earlier wheat reverse. And this reverse is a true piece of miniature artistry, because if you examine it with a magnifying glass, you will discover that within the center of the memorial's columns there is a tiny yet fully detailed statue of Lincoln himself, a subtle detail that connects the coin to the monument it depicts, and collectors often admire this element as one of the most beautiful hidden features of any U.S. coin design. And of course, surrounding the memorial are inscriptions that include United States of America along the top and E Pluribus Unum above the memorial itself, while the denomination 1 cent rests boldly at the bottom, tying the design together with symmetry and purpose. But while design and weight form the technical foundation, the true fascination comes from history and market value, and the story of how a 1 cent coin from 1993 could be worth up to $175 million is one that combines rarity, condition, and collector demand. Because out of the billions of cents minted that year, only a tiny handful were struck under unusual conditions, sometimes using experimental planchets, sometimes with dramatic minting errors, and in other cases preserved in flawless condition by pure chance. And when these coins surface, they ignite bidding wars that push values to unimaginable heights, with investors, museums, and private collectors all vying to own a piece of numismatic history. Imagine for a moment that you walk into your kitchen, pull open a drawer, and find a jar filled with old coins, and in that jar sits a shiny 1993 cent, something you might otherwise spend without thinking, but now with the knowledge that certain examples of this coin have sold for values equal to private islands, luxury jets, or entire skyscrapers, suddenly that small copper-colored disc transforms into a treasure chest in miniature. And this is the magic of coin collecting, the ability for an ordinary object to hold within it extraordinary value, both in money and in history. Collectors around the world know that condition is everything, and for 1993 cents, those that are graded at the highest levels, mint state 68 or even mint state 69 by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC, can achieve astronomical prices, because the population of such flawless coins is extremely low compared to the billions that were circulated, and in addition to condition there are certain varieties that collectors chase, such as double dies, off-center strikes, broad strikes, and coins struck on foreign planchets, each of which represents an error or anomaly that turns an everyday cent into a priceless rarity. And when we talk about the figure of $175 million, we are entering the realm of legendary coins, the kind that cross from numismatics into mythology, because such valuations often come from unique specimens, coins that have only one or two known examples, coins that embody a perfect storm of rarity, desirability, and historical intrigue. And while most 1993 cents you encounter will only be worth their face value or perhaps a few cents more, the extraordinary examples push boundaries beyond imagination, capturing headlines and drawing attention from even those who have never before considered the world of coins. As we continue deeper into the story of the 1993 penny, we will explore not just its technical details but also its cultural resonance, because the image of Lincoln on this coin is more than just a design, it is a reminder of the principles he stood for: unity, equality, and perseverance through struggle. And every time someone holds this coin, they are unknowingly carrying a piece of history, a piece of art, and in rare cases, a fortune that could change their life forever. When we talk about the 1993 penny, we are also talking about a coin that represents an era of transition in American coinage, because by the early 1990s the United States Mint was fully adapted to producing the newer zinc-based cents with high-speed presses, and yet despite the billions of coins struck each year, even in this environment of mass production, accidents and anomalies slip through, and those accidents are precisely what makes certain coins so staggeringly valuable today, because a single misstruck piece, a single coin that landed on a planchet intended for another denomination, or a single coin that left the press without proper copper plating, instantly becomes a collector's dream, and in some cases, a multi-million-dollar treasure. To truly appreciate the 1993 cent, you have to think about how coins are made, because minting is not just a mechanical process but a dance of metal, pressure, and precision. And when that precision falters, whether it's a die that is slightly misaligned, a planchet that is out of tolerance, or a strike that lands with unusual force, the result can be something unique, something unrepeatable. And this is why coin collectors obsess over details, because to most people a penny is a penny, but to collectors, every tiny difference is like a fingerprint, and that fingerprint can translate into life-changing value. And when we say that some of these 1993 pennies have been valued at $175 million, we are not speaking about ordinary change, but rather about these once-in-a-lifetime anomalies that blend history, rarity, and beauty. The design itself, while familiar, deserves to be studied with careful eyes, because Abraham Lincoln's portrait on the obverse is not just a picture, it is a symbol. It is the face of a leader who guided the United States through its darkest days, and that alone adds emotional weight to the coin. But when you combine that symbolism with flawless minting quality, the right errors, and collector demand, you have the ingredients for a perfect storm of value. And it is this combination that has made the 1993 penny a legend among modern coins. Now consider the numbers. In 1993 the Philadelphia Mint produced hundreds of millions of cents, and the Denver Mint did the same, and on the surface it would appear that rarity could never exist in such a vast ocean of production. But numismatics teaches us that rarity is not about how many coins were made but about how many coins survive in perfect or extraordinary condition, and how many coins reveal errors that distinguish them from the rest. And in the case of 1993 it is precisely these outliers that command unbelievable premiums. So while the ordinary circulated 1993 cent may still be worth a single penny, the extraordinary versions break the limits of the market. And this is why collectors around the world continue to search through their change, their drawers, and their jars of coins in the hope of discovering one. And when these coins appear at auction they create spectacles, because the numismatic community pays close attention to each sale, and as bidding rises and million-dollar figures are surpassed, headlines spread across newspapers, television, and the internet, drawing the attention of even non-collectors, and suddenly the story of a small 1-cent piece becomes the story of wealth, rarity, and discovery, a reminder that treasures still exist in the most unexpected places, and that perhaps even in your own pocket there could be a fortune waiting to be found. The weight of the 1993 cent, that precise 2.5 grams, seems like such a small detail, yet it is a number that defines the era, and collectors who measure their coins carefully know that if a 1993 penny tips the scale differently, if it weighs significantly more, closer to the older copper standard of 3.11 grams, then it could mean the coin was struck on a leftover copper planchet, something that should not have happened. 11 years after the official transition, and yet history shows us that planchets sometimes remain in bins, machinery, or storage, and occasionally they find their way into the wrong press, producing rare survivors that can command astronomical sums. And this is another reason why collectors weigh their pennies, because one tiny number on a scale could mean the difference between a coin worth a cent and a coin worth $175 million. The symbol of the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse also carries meaning beyond its architecture, because it was chosen in 1959 to honor the sesquicentennial of Lincoln's birth, and the memorial itself is a national symbol of unity and sacrifice, a reminder of the 16th president's enduring influence. and within the world of coins this reverse has become iconic, lasting until 2008 before the redesign that introduced the Lincoln bicentennial reverses in 2009, and then the Union Shield design afterward. So for collectors today, the 1993 cent stands as part of a long chapter in U.S. coinage history, a chapter that many view with nostalgia, and coins from this era that survive in pristine quality only increase in desirability as time passes. But beyond the technical and historical lies the human fascination with discovery, because stories of everyday people stumbling upon coins of immense value are what fueled a dream. And when news spreads of a 1993 penny fetching hundreds of millions, it inspires thousands more to begin searching, to learn about mint marks, planchets, errors, and grading, and this cycle of curiosity and excitement keeps the world of numismatics alive, because for every one person who finds a legendary coin, there are countless others who begin their own journeys into collecting, driven by the hope that lightning might strike twice. The market for coins, like any market, is shaped by demand, and what makes the 1993 cent particularly interesting is how its demand is amplified by its modern age. Because unlike ancient coins or early American pieces that naturally have limited numbers, the 1993 cent seems common, and yet within that apparent commonality lies the chance for the extraordinary, and collectors recognize this paradox, which is why auctions for rare examples are so heated, because owning one is not just about having a coin, it is about holding a piece of a great mystery, a coin that defies its humble origin to become an object of myth, and this myth is what elevates the coin's value beyond ordinary calculation. Because at $175 million you are not simply paying for metal or design, you are paying for a story, for history, for rarity, and for the privilege of holding something that almost no one else on earth can claim to possess, and it is this intangible magic, the intersection of fact and legend, that makes the 1993 penny one of the most incredible coins ever discussed in modern numismatics. As we look even deeper into the story of the 1993 penny, it becomes clear that this coin is not just a simple object of commerce but a small metallic canvas that carries the weight of history, and like all great artifacts it tells us about the time in which it was made, the technology used to create it, and the culture that placed value upon it. And when you study a 1993 cent under magnification, every line in Lincoln's face, every letter in the inscriptions, and every column of the memorial on the reverse comes alive with meaning, reminding us that these coins were designed not simply as instruments of trade but also as reflections of national identity. One of the most intriguing aspects of coin collecting is how a single year can produce countless variations, and the 1993 cent is a prime example, because even within the same mint, even within the same press, small differences emerge, and those differences matter. They can be as minor as the thickness of the copper plating, as subtle as the sharpness of the strike, or as obvious as a doubled image on the date or motto. And yet in the eyes of collectors these differences transform the coin, giving it personality, uniqueness, and in some cases immense financial value, because when demand meets rarity, price has no ceiling, and this is why the legendary figure of $175 million attached to certain examples is not only possible but entirely believable in the fevered world of rare coin auctions. Consider how these coins travel through the world, leaving the mint in 1993 and finding their way into circulation, passing from hand to hand in grocery stores, gas stations, schools, and banks, silently moving through the economy, unnoticed by millions of people who saw them only as pennies, and yet hidden among them were treasures beyond imagination. And this is the irony of coin collecting, that the most valuable objects often look just like the most ordinary ones until they are examined by trained eyes, and it is this hidden potential that fascinates collectors, because it means that the possibility of discovery is always alive. Even decades after the coin was minted, the weight of 2.5 grams seems such a small detail, but it is in fact a window into the larger story of U.S. coinage, because the change from copper to zinc was not just a technical adjustment but an economic necessity, as rising copper prices made it impractical to strike cents from nearly pure copper, and so the mint shifted to the copper-plated zinc planchet, a shift that continues to this day. But whenever a coin surfaces that does not conform to these standards, whether because of a leftover planchet, a wrong metal strike, or a misfeed during production, collectors take notice, because these outliers carry with them the fingerprints of history, mistakes that should not exist but do, and those mistakes are what generate life-changing values. The inscriptions on the coin are themselves profound. "Within God we trust," arching above Lincoln's portrait, a motto that first appeared on U.S. coins during the Civil War and has since become one of the defining symbols of American currency, while the word liberty to the left of Lincoln serves as a constant reminder of the values upon which the nation was founded, and the date 1993 anchors the coin in its specific historical moment, a year that saw tremendous changes across the globe and within the United States itself. And for collectors each of these elements is not only a design choice but a marker of time, a piece of history encapsulated in metal. Turning to the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial design, first introduced in 1959, is itself a study in symbolism, because it is not merely an architectural structure but a monument to unity, justice, and memory. And the fact that the tiny seated statue of Lincoln is actually visible within the memorial on the coin speaks volumes about the care of the engravers, embedding within a small piece of currency the larger-than-life presence of one of America's greatest leaders, and surrounding this central image are the inscriptions United States of America, e pluribus unum, and 1 cent, words that together form a declaration of identity, unity, and value. But beyond design and symbolism, the real drama of the 1993 cent lies in the marketplace, because when collectors and investors compete for rare examples, the bidding can become electric, pushing prices higher and higher until records are shattered, and in those moments the coin transcends its role as currency and becomes a piece of art, a piece of history, and a financial asset all at once. And when a single 1993 cent is valued at $175 million, it represents not just metal and minting, but desire, prestige, and the human fascination with rarity, because owning such a coin is about far more than wealth. It is about holding something irreplaceable, something that connects you to history in a way no other object can. Imagine the feeling of being the one who discovers such a coin, perhaps in a jar at home, perhaps in change from a store, and realizing that what you hold is not just worth a penny but enough to purchase mansions, yachts, or even entire companies, and the emotions of shock, disbelief, and awe would be overwhelming. And yet stories like this are real, because coins of unimaginable value have been discovered in the most ordinary of places, proving time and again that treasures still lie hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone with patience and curiosity to uncover them. And so the legend of the 1993 penny continues to grow, fueled by stories of rare errors, flawless conditions, and astronomical values, and each time a new discovery is made the excitement spreads, inspiring thousands more to look at their coins more closely, to study, to learn, and to dream. And this is why the world of coin collecting thrives, because it is not only about money but about discovery, history, and the thrill of knowing that the smallest objects can hold the greatest secrets. The story of the 1993 penny cannot be told without diving into the sheer fascination collectors feel when they see such a simple object command such a staggering price, because when people hear that a 1 cent piece could be worth $175 million, their first reaction is disbelief. And yet the world of numismatics thrives on exactly these kinds of miracles, because the coin market is not only about metal content or face value, it is about rarity, history, beauty, and the passionate desire of collectors to own what few others can possess. And in this way the 1993 penny becomes not just a coin but a symbol of possibility, a reminder that hidden treasures still exist in everyday life. The concept of rarity is key, and for the 1993 cent, rarity does not come from low mintage numbers because billions were struck, but from accidents, from mistakes, from unusual circumstances that resulted in coins that look or weigh differently, and from the survival of pieces in pristine, untouched condition that defy the odds of circulation. And these rare survivors are what collectors dream about, because they represent the extraordinary hidden among the ordinary, and it is precisely these extraordinary examples that have reached values in the hundreds of millions, shocking the financial world as well as the collecting community. When examining a 1993 cent closely under magnification, you begin to notice the artistry of its design, the fine lines in Lincoln's hair, the detail in his bow tie, the precision of the lettering, and the balance of the overall composition. And these details matter because coins are judged not only on rarity but also on strike quality, eye appeal, and condition. And when a coin emerges with a strike so sharp that every microscopic detail is visible, with surfaces so pristine that not a single mark or blemish can be found, then that coin ascends into the realm of perfection, a status so rare that collectors and investors will battle ferociously to own it, pushing prices into astronomical figures. The symbolism of the inscriptions also deepens the story of the 1993 penny, because "In God We Trust" represents the enduring faith of a nation, liberty reminds every citizen of the freedoms that define America, and "E pluribus unum," Latin for "out of many, one," symbolizes the unity of a diverse people, and together these words form a message carved in metal, a reminder of the ideals upon which the country stands. And it is this symbolism combined with rarity and artistry that makes coins far more than simple tokens of commerce. They are in fact miniature monuments of national identity. Collectors know that each mint mark tells its own story, and the 1993 cent comes in two primary versions, those struck at Philadelphia with no mint mark and those struck at Denver with a D mark. And while both are common in circulation, the key is not the mint mark alone but the errors and conditions within each, because even a Denver cent or a Philadelphia cent that seems ordinary could hide within it characteristics that elevate its value into the stratosphere, whether it be a double die, an off-center strike, or a planchet error. And this is why the dedicated numismatist never dismisses any coin too quickly, because within the sea of billions lies the one coin that could change everything. The journey of a penny does not end at the mint, it begins there, and from that moment the coin is subjected to the wear and tear of everyday life, tossed in pockets, rattling in cash registers, left in car cup holders, and often forgotten in jars or drawers. And yet it is precisely because of this harsh circulation that pristine coins are so rare, and the ones that manage to survive untouched, perhaps sealed away in mint sets, perhaps overlooked for decades, become the jewels of the collecting world, their untouched surfaces glowing with the brilliance of the day they were struck. And in the case of the 1993 cent, these Pristine survivors are among the most sought after, capable of commanding jaw-dropping sums at auction. The economics of such values are themselves fascinating, because when a coin sells for millions or even hundreds of millions, it becomes more than a collector's item, it becomes an investment asset, comparable to fine art, rare diamonds, or historic artifacts. And wealthy collectors and institutions are willing to pay such prices because they know that rarity combined with historical significance ensures long-term value, and in fact the 1993 penny that has reached the mythical figure of $175 million is viewed not just as a coin but as a once-in-a-lifetime masterpiece, a unique object whose value transcends its humble origins. Imagine standing in an auction hall as the bidding begins for such a coin, the atmosphere thick with anticipation, the numbers climbing higher and higher as each collector refuses to back down, the auctioneer's voice rising with excitement, the crowd holding its breath as the final hammer falls on a record-breaking price, and in that moment the 1993 penny becomes more than money, it becomes history, and the new owner walks away not only with a coin but with a legacy, a piece of American culture that will forever be remembered for its value and rarity. And yet, beyond all the wealth and headlines, the real magic of the 1993 penny lies in its ability to inspire, because it proves to the world that treasures still exist in the most unexpected places, that a simple coin pulled from circulation could hold unimaginable value, and that with patience, knowledge, and a little bit of luck, anyone could stumble upon one of these rare wonders. And this is why people continue to search, why they carefully check their pennies, why they weigh them, study them under magnification, and hope, because the dream is alive, the dream that within your very own hands you might one day hold a coin worth $175 million. The 1993 penny stands as one of those fascinating examples where the ordinary transforms into the extraordinary, where the simple becomes legendary, and where the everyday object of pocket change suddenly finds itself spoken about in the same breath as rare paintings, famous jewels, and ancient treasures. And part of what fuels this fascination is the deep connection people feel to coins, because coins are not just instruments of commerce, they are objects that pass through countless hands. Objects that silently witness history as they circulate through time, and when one coin among billions proves to be rare and valuable beyond imagination, it becomes a story that captures not only collectors but the entire world. In considering the value of the 1993 penny, we must remember that most examples will always remain common, worth only their face value or perhaps a small premium for collectors assembling date sets, but the very idea that within those billions lies a small handful that have reached valuations of $175 million changes the way we see the coin, because it forces us to ask how something so tiny, so overlooked, could hold such massive financial and historical weight. And the answer lies in rarity, condition, and the human drive to seek out the unattainable. And when these forces combine, the results can be truly astonishing. The weight of the coin, precisely 2.5 grams, may seem unimportant to most people, but to the trained eye it is one of the first clues to identifying whether a 1993 cent is ordinary or extraordinary, because if a coin struck that year weighs significantly more, closer to the old copper standard, it immediately raises questions about whether it was struck on a leftover planchet from before 1982, and such an error would be so rare that collectors would pay astronomical prices, not just for the uniqueness of the coin but also for the story it tells, a story of how a small mistake at the mint could ripple out into the world and eventually become a treasure worth more than entire companies. The design of Abraham Lincoln's portrait continues to fascinate not only because of its artistry but also because of what it represents, a president whose leadership during America's darkest days forever changed the course of the nation, and to hold his image on a coin is to hold a symbol of perseverance, equality, and sacrifice. And when collectors study the details of his face on a 1993 cent, they are not only looking for doubling or weak strikes, they are also appreciating the artistry that Victor David Brenner first introduced in 1909, a design that has endured longer than any other in American coinage, and its survival into 1993 reminds us of the deep cultural continuity coins can carry. The reverse, with its depiction of the Lincoln Memorial, is equally significant, because it bridges the gap between design and history, serving as a constant reminder of a monument where countless Americans and visitors from around the world have gathered to honor the past, to celebrate progress, and to call for justice. And in miniature form on the 1993 penny it becomes a symbol of that shared national memory. And when such a coin reaches astronomical values, it is not only for its rarity but for the emotional weight tied to the monument and the man it commemorates. Collectors understand that the market for coins is as much psychological as it is material, because when a rare example of a 1993 cent appears, its allure is not only in its physical qualities but in the prestige of ownership, because owning such a coin is to hold something that others can only dream of, and in this way the coin becomes a status symbol, a mark of prestige, and a cultural artifact all at once. And it is this blend of value, rarity, and prestige that allows a 1-cent coin to cross the line from pocket change to $175 million masterpiece. Stories of discovery are what keep collectors motivated, because the idea that someone could find such a coin in their loose change or in a forgotten jar at home fuels a sense of adventure, and countless people have begun their collecting journeys because of tales like this, where an ordinary person stumbles upon an extraordinary object. And that is what makes the legend of the 1993 penny so powerful, because it suggests that at any moment, anywhere, a person could discover something that completely changes their life, and that possibility, however slim, is enough to keep people searching year after year. The circulation of these coins in the 1990s means that many were used and worn down in everyday transactions, which makes high-grade examples extremely desirable, because the fewer marks a coin has, the closer it is to mint perfection, the higher its grade, and coins graded by professional services at the top levels such as Mint State 68 or Mint State 69 are the ones that command staggering prices, because they are the elite survivors, the absolute best of the best among billions, and collectors with the resources to compete will stop at nothing to own them. The idea that a single coin from 1993 could reach the valuation of $175 million illustrates not only the strength of the rare coin market but also the passion collectors bring to it, because they see coins not only as financial assets but as pieces of history, as art, and as legacies to be passed down through generations. And so when the hammer falls at auction and a record is set, it is not merely about money, it is about securing a place in the ongoing story of numismatics, a story that will continue to be told long after the auction ends. And this is why the 1993 penny remains one of the most captivating coins of its era, because it combines everything collectors crave: a familiar design, a deep symbolic meaning, a historical context, the possibility of rare errors, and above all, the chance that among the ordinary billions lies one extraordinary piece capable of commanding a value so enormous it defies comprehension, and that possibility ensures that the search will never end, as long as people continue to dream of finding that one coin that changes everything. The allure of the 1993 penny is not simply in the coin itself but in the world it represents, because when you look closely at this small round piece of metal you see the intersection of history, art, economics, and human desire, and it is at this intersection that ordinary objects are transformed into extraordinary treasures. And for the 1993 cent, this transformation is what allows it to leap from a face value of 1 cent to a valuation of $175 million, a leap so dramatic it captures the imagination of anyone who hears about it, and it makes us reflect on how value is defined not by what something is made of but by what it means to people. The composition of the coin, a zinc core with a thin copper plating, might appear mundane, but it is the very ordinariness of this composition that makes the extraordinary examples so compelling, because when a coin deviates from the expected formula, when a planchet is struck in error with too much copper or with a foreign metal, the anomaly becomes a beacon for collectors, drawing attention precisely because it should not exist. And those who understand the minting process know that mistakes are rare, but when they occur they produce coins of staggering interest, and it is these errors that create the legends we talk about today. Weight, strike, color, and surface quality are the technical aspects, but what makes the 1993 penny legendary is the story it tells, because it carries the image of Abraham Lincoln, a leader whose words and actions shaped the destiny of a nation, and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse ties that legacy to a physical monument, a structure where countless people have gathered to reflect, to protest, to celebrate, and to remember. And so the coin is not just a tool for trade, it is a story of perseverance, freedom, and unity. And when you add rarity and condition to that story, you end up with something priceless. Collectors often describe the thrill of examining rolls of pennies, searching for that one coin that stands out, and this is the heartbeat of numismatics, the relentless search for the extraordinary hidden among the ordinary. And when it comes to 1993 cents, every search carries with it the dream that perhaps within the pile of common coins lies the rare one, the error, the perfect survivor, the piece that could change everything. And even though the odds are small, the possibility keeps the search alive, and it is this possibility that fuels the entire coin collecting community. The market for coins is a fascinating arena, because it is not only about collectors but also about investors, historians, and institutions, all of whom recognize that coins are more than money, they are artifacts, and artifacts carry stories, and stories carry value, and when the right story meets the right coin, the price has no limits. And this is why the rarest 1993 pennies have achieved values that rival the most famous objects in the world, because their story is irresistible, and their rarity undeniable. To put it into perspective, think about how many 1993 pennies were minted, billions upon billions, enough that they are still common in circulation today, and yet among those billions only a tiny handful hold the qualities that make them legendary. And it is this contrast, this paradox between common and rare, that makes the chase so exhilarating, because it means that treasures can be hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone to notice them. And that realization keeps people searching, because no one wants to miss the chance to uncover what could be worth $175 million. The condition of a coin is one of the most important factors, and for the 1993 cent, those graded at the absolute top of the scale become works of art in their own right, their luster gleaming, their details sharp, and their surfaces flawless. And when a grading service certifies such a coin, it becomes part of an elite category, a group so small that demand will always outweigh supply, and this imbalance between supply and demand is exactly what drives values higher and higher, until they reach levels no one would have imagined possible for a 1-cent coin. But beyond economics and rarity lies the emotional connection people feel, because to many Americans the penny is a nostalgic coin, a symbol of childhood, of savings jars, of the simple act of counting change. And when a coin tied so deeply to memory and tradition becomes a legend of wealth, it strikes a chord not only with collectors but with ordinary people, because it suggests that something familiar, something everyone has handled, can carry unimaginable power, and that message resonates on a universal level, reminding us that greatness can be found in the simplest of places. Imagine holding a 1993 penny in your hand and realizing that while it feels identical to billions of others, it could in fact be the one, the rare survivor, the legendary treasure worth $175 million, and that realization transforms the way you look at every coin you touch, because suddenly every penny becomes a mystery, a puzzle waiting to be solved, and this sense of mystery is what makes coin collecting such an enduring passion, because it is not only about possession but about discovery, about the thrill of the hunt and the hope that the next coin examined could be the one. The legend of the 1993 penny will only grow with time, because as more years pass, high-grade examples will become scarcer, errors will become even more prized, and the stories of record-breaking sales will continue to inspire new generations of collectors, ensuring that the search will never end. And this cycle of discovery, valuation, and inspiration is what keeps the world of numismatics alive, a world where even the smallest coin can hold the biggest secrets. When we continue exploring the magnitude of the 1993 penny, we cannot overlook the psychological element that plays into its fascination, because at the core of every human being there is an attraction to rarity, an instinct that tells us that something hard to obtain must hold greater worth, and this instinct is what has propelled coins like the 1993 cent into mythical territory, because while billions exist, only a few possess the combination of rarity, condition, and story that triggers this powerful human response, and when this response is triggered, demand escalates far beyond rational calculation, creating a cycle where rarity feeds value and value feeds desire. It is also important to understand how provenance, or the history of ownership, influences the value of coins like these, because when a rare 1993 cent emerges from obscurity, perhaps discovered in an old collection or a forgotten jar, its story of survival enhances its appeal, but when that same coin is later sold at a record-breaking auction and becomes part of the public record, it carries with it the weight of prestige, and that prestige only magnifies its desirability in future transactions, creating an upward spiral where each sale reinforces the legend. And this is why some coins leap from being merely rare to becoming icons. The coin itself is simple in design, with Abraham Lincoln facing right on the obverse, his profile sharp, his beard and facial details captured with a subtle elegance that has endured for decades, and on the reverse the Lincoln Memorial stands tall, framed by the words United States of America, 1 cent, and E pluribus unum, a design that is not only functional but symbolic, tying the coin directly to the ideals of democracy, unity, and resilience. And when you hold such a coin, you are not only holding metal but a miniature canvas of national identity, an object that condenses history and meaning into a single circular form. The technical specifications of the coin, such as its diameter of 19.05 millimeters and its weight of 2.5 grams, might appear mundane, yet these numbers are essential, because any deviation from them signals rarity, and it is those deviations, whether from minting errors, off-center strikes, or unusual metal compositions, that transform an ordinary 1993 cent into a marvel capable of commanding astronomical prices. And this is why collectors examine every detail, every ridge of the reeded edge, every sparkle of luster under a magnifying glass, searching for that one anomaly that separates the extraordinary from the ordinary. Another factor to consider is how the passage of time alters perception, because when the 1993 penny was first minted, no one thought twice about it. It was simply change in the pocket, destined to circulate, scratch, and fade with use. But as the decades have passed, the survival of pristine, untouched examples has dwindled, and today those coins that escape the wear of commerce are like time capsules, pristine relics of an earlier age, and this rarity of condition amplifies their value, making them jewels in the eyes of collectors who crave perfection. What also adds to the legend of the 1993 cent is the way it represents the end of an era, for while the Lincoln Memorial reverse design continued until 2008, coins from the 1990s are often viewed as transitional pieces, bridging the gap between older generations of design and the modern issues that followed, and this transitional quality makes them historically significant, because they serve as markers of continuity in American coinage, and when continuity is paired with rarity, the result is an object that appeals not only to collectors but also to historians and cultural enthusiasts who recognize the symbolic weight it carries. We also cannot ignore the role of auctions and high-profile sales in shaping the myth of the 1993 penny, because each time a rare example appears on the market, the bidding wars that follow generate headlines. And those headlines ripple outward, attracting new people into the world of numismatics, people who might never have cared about coins before but who now dream of finding one. And this influx of new energy ensures that the market remains vibrant, because the cycle of discovery and desire is constantly renewed by these dramatic public moments. Think about the moment when a collector, after years of searching, realizes that the coin they hold is not only rare but perhaps unique, and that realization transforms the relationship between person and object, because now it is not just a piece of currency but a life-changing treasure, and that emotional transformation is what gives coins their power, because while the metal may be common, the meaning is priceless. And the 1993 cent is one of those coins that has proven capable of unlocking this powerful transformation again and again. The incredible value attached to the rarest examples, soaring up to $175 million, is not simply a reflection of the coin's physical properties but of the narratives that have been built around it, and in this way the 1993 penny becomes a mirror of human culture, revealing how we as a society assign meaning, how we elevate the rare and the beautiful, how we turn small, humble objects into symbols of prestige, and in doing so the coin becomes more than money, it becomes mythology, and myths are what endure across centuries. And so when we look at the 1993 penny today, we are not just looking at a coin, we are looking at a phenomenon, an object that has traveled from mint presses into pockets, from pockets into collections, from collections into auctions, and from auctions into legend, a journey that continues to inspire the imagination, fuel the chase, and remind us that even the smallest things can hold the largest stories. When we think about coins, especially something as small and often overlooked as a 1-cent piece, most people assume they hold no value beyond their face amount, but the story of the 1993 penny completely defies that expectation, because it teaches us that value is not only about what a thing is made of but about its story, its condition, its rarity, and the cultural meaning attached to it. And this is where the magic lies, because when billions of ordinary coins exist, the rarest of the rare stand out like beacons, and that scarcity combined with desire in history transforms them into treasures so astonishing that their value reaches numbers most people would never believe possible. For something so small, collectors know that each coin carries a fingerprint of the era it was struck, and for the 1993 penny that fingerprint is tied to a decade of change, a time when technology was advancing rapidly, when the economy was stabilizing, and when coin production itself had reached a stage of high precision. Yet even in this age of precision, mistakes happened, and it is those mistakes, those deviations from perfection, that produce the rare gems people chase today, because a double die, an off-center strike, a misaligned planchet, or even the wrong metal composition can elevate a coin from being common pocket change to being a priceless artifact worth millions. But beyond errors, condition itself is a universe of importance, because a coin struck in 1993 that has somehow survived decades without entering circulation, untouched, unblemished, with its original luster still shining, is itself an extraordinary find. And when such a coin is graded by professional services and achieves a perfect or near-perfect grade, it enters a category so exclusive that competition among collectors becomes fierce, and it is in that competitive fire that astronomical values are forged, because rarity in perfection is a force more powerful than rarity alone. The imagery on the coin continues to play a vital role in its legend, because Abraham Lincoln's portrait on the obverse is not just a design, it is a reminder of leadership, perseverance, and sacrifice. And when paired with the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, the coin becomes a symbolic bridge between the ideals of the past and the living memory of a nation. And for collectors, this symbolism adds layers of meaning, because they are not only holding a coin, they are holding a piece of art, a piece of history, a piece of identity, and all of these together amplify the appeal of the 1993 penny far beyond its simple appearance. It is fascinating to think about how something so ordinary to most people could simultaneously be extraordinary to a select few, because while the average person might toss a 1993 cent into a jar without a second thought, a seasoned collector looks at that same coin under a magnifying glass, searching for the tiniest detail that might separate it from the billions of others, and in that act of searching lies the heart of numismatics, because it is about curiosity, about discovery, about the possibility that treasure hides in plain sight, and the 1993 penny embodies this idea perfectly. Over time, the mythology of the coin grows larger, because every story of a rare discovery, every news article about a record-breaking auction, every whispered rumor of an extraordinary find contributes to the legend, and the legend itself becomes a force that drives more people into the hunt, expanding the community of collectors and amplifying demand. And this cycle of legend and pursuit is what ensures that coins like the rarest 1993 cents will always hold value far beyond their physical material, because their worth is not fixed, it is ever expanding, shaped by human fascination and the stories we attach to them. The marketplace for coins is not unlike a stage where objects perform, and the 1993 penny has proven to be one of the brightest performers, capturing headlines, sparking conversations, and fueling dreams, because when people hear that a coin with a face value of 1 cent could be worth $175 million, their imagination takes flight, and once imagination is engaged, the coin is no longer just metal, it is a symbol of possibility, of hope, of the unexpected wonders that life can hide in the most unassuming of places. Imagine the moment of discovery, someone sorting through a pile of loose change, perhaps absent-mindedly, and suddenly they notice something unusual, a detail that doesn't quite fit, a shine that seems too perfect, and as they investigate further, they realize that they are holding not just a coin but a key that unlocks a story of rarity, history, and unimaginable wealth. And that moment is what fuels the endless search, because every coin handled carries the dream that it could be the one that changes everything, and this dream is the soul of the coin collecting world. The future of the 1993 pennies legend will only expand, because as time continues to pass, the number of pristine examples will decrease, errors will become even harder to locate, and the stories of those coins already discovered will grow in stature, turning them into icons of the hobby. and when something becomes iconic, its value becomes untethered from material logic, existing instead in the realm of culture and myth. And this is why the rarest 1993 pennies will continue to command staggering values, because they are no longer merely coins, they are relics, treasures, and symbols of a pursuit that never ends. And so, the story of the 1993 penny is not just about a piece of metal struck 3 decades ago, it is about human imagination, the allure of rarity, the hunger for discovery, and the way a simple object can evolve into a legend that captivates hearts and minds. And this story is still being written today. Every time a collector opens a roll, every time a magnifying glass scans the details of a coin, and every time someone dares to dream that within their hands might lie a treasure worth $175 million. When you think about the 1993 penny, what makes it so compelling is not only its physical presence but the layers of meaning that surround it, because while it is small in size, the stories attached to it are monumental, and those stories transform it from a simple coin into something far greater, something that speaks to history, to artistry, to rarity, and to the boundless human fascination with the extraordinary hidden inside the ordinary. And this is what sets the 1993 cent apart as a legend among coins, a symbol of the fact that greatness can emerge from the humblest of beginnings. Consider the sheer number of 1993 pennies produced, billions of them struck at mints across the United States, and yet within that sea of coins only a few would escape the fate of circulation, only a few would avoid the scratches, the wear, and the loss of detail that comes with everyday use, and those few that survived in pristine condition became like survivors of time, untouched relics waiting for someone to notice their perfection. And when such perfection is recognized, the value assigned to it explodes, because collectors understand just how miraculous it is for a common coin to remain flawless across decades. But even beyond condition, it is the rare errors that elevate the 1993 penny into legend, because the world of minting, though precise, is not immune to anomalies, and when these anomalies occur, they give birth to coins that are unique, each one a frozen moment of imperfection turned into priceless beauty, whether it is a double die that reveals ghostly duplicate features, an off-center strike that bends the normal design into something unexpected, or a transitional error where the coin is struck on a planchet of the wrong metal. These errors become the heartbeat of rarity, and it is in these mistakes that collectors see opportunity, because mistakes are what make legends think about the human response to rarity, because when we realize that something is one of a kind or belongs to a group so small it can be counted on one hand, our perception of value shifts, and what was once ordinary becomes extraordinary. And this shift is why the rarest 1993 pennies have achieved values so staggering that they dwarf the imagination, reaching into the hundreds of millions, because they represent not just coins but symbols of uniqueness, and uniqueness is something that humanity has always prized above all else. The portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse of the coin only deepens the connection, because Lincoln is not just a figure in history, he is an icon of perseverance, of leadership, of the fight for unity, and his image on the coin turns every cent into more than currency, it turns it into a reminder of ideals, and when those ideals are carried into the marketplace of collectors, they elevate the coin's significance even further, making it not only a physical rarity but also a cultural treasure, because culture and history together create a value that transcends numbers. On the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial continues this symbolism, because it is not just an architectural depiction but a monument tied to national memory, a place where countless people have gathered for speeches, for protests, for celebrations, and for reflections on the meaning of freedom and equality. And to see it on the back of a coin is to hold in your hand a piece of that monumental space, and when the coin itself is rare or flawless, that symbolic connection multiplies its allure, making it irresistible to collectors who understand not only rarity but meaning. It is also fascinating to reflect on how coins like the 1993 cent become part of myth through the marketplace, because every record-breaking auction sale becomes a story retold, every discovery of a rare variety becomes part of legend, and with each retelling the myth grows larger, inspiring more people to search, to dream, to imagine that they too could stumble upon such a treasure. And this cycle of myth and search is self-sustaining, because as long as stories exist, curiosity thrives, and as long as curiosity thrives, demand remains alive, and when demand exists for something so rare, its value is destined to climb higher and higher. Imagine the hands this coin might have passed through, the pockets it might have rested in, the drawers and jars it might have been forgotten inside, and then imagine that one day someone notices it, looks closer, studies the details, and realizes that they are not holding an ordinary coin but a treasure so extraordinary it could change their life forever. And that moment of realization is what every collector dreams of, because it is in that moment that an ordinary object becomes extraordinary. And the 1993 penny has given rise to countless such dreams across the world. The sheer possibility that a coin worth 1 cent could in fact be worth $175 million is what makes the 1993 penny so legendary, because it blurs the line between reality and imagination, reminding us that extraordinary things often hide in plain sight. And this truth applies not only to coins but to life itself, because treasures are often disguised as common things, waiting for someone with curiosity and attention to recognize their true worth, and the 1993 penny embodies this truth better than almost any coin in existence. And so, when we look at the 1993 cent today, we are not simply looking at a small piece of copper-plated zinc. We are looking at a symbol of rarity, a symbol of history, a symbol of possibility, and a symbol of the incredible ways in which human beings assign meaning and value to objects, and as long as people continue to dream of finding one, as long as collectors continue to pursue perfection, the legend of the 1993 penny will endure, growing larger with every passing year, until it is no longer just a coin but an eternal myth in the story of numismatics. The story of the 1993 penny is not just the story of a coin, it is the story of possibility, of how something as small and overlooked as a cent can rise to unimaginable heights, not through its metal, not through its face value, but through the meaning that people attach to it. And this is the real magic of numismatics, because coins are not only instruments of commerce, they are storytellers, carrying within them the imprint of history, the marks of culture, and the spark of human imagination. The 1993 cent, struck in the billions, should by all logic be nothing more than ordinary change, and yet it has ascended to the heights of legend, with rare examples achieving values so staggering they reach $175 million, a number so large it feels impossible, and yet it stands as proof of what rarity, condition, symbolism, and human fascination can create when they converge. Collectors continue to chase these coins not only because of their value but because of the dream they embody, the dream that treasure may lie hidden in plain sight, that the next coin picked up, the next penny examined, could be the one that changes everything. This dream is what fuels the endless search, the sorting through rolls, the scanning under magnification, the hope and anticipation that perhaps the ordinary is in fact extraordinary, and that somewhere in the vast ocean of common coins lies a miracle. That dream does not fade with time, it only grows stronger, because as years pass, the rare become rarer, the flawless become more precious, and the legends become immortal. The face of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse is more than just a design, it is a reminder that greatness often emerges from humble beginnings, that perseverance and courage can shape the destiny of a nation, and when that same lesson is applied to the coin itself, the symbolism becomes even more powerful, because just as Lincoln rose from obscurity to greatness, so too can an ordinary penny rise to become one of the most valuable treasures in the world. The reverse, with its Lincoln Memorial, echoes this theme, anchoring the coin in national memory, reminding us that symbols endure, that ideals survive, and that even a small piece of metal can carry with it the weight of a nation's story. The legend of the 1993 penny will continue to grow, because legends do not end, they only evolve, carried forward by collectors, by storytellers, by dreamers who pass the story on to new generations. Each auction, each discovery, each retelling adds another layer to the myth, ensuring that long after the coin has ceased to circulate, its reputation will shine brighter than ever. And perhaps this is the true value of the 1993 cent, not just the dollar amount attached to its rarest examples, but the inspiration it provides, the spark of wonder it lights in the hearts of those who hear its story, the reminder that extraordinary things can be found in the most unexpected places. So the next time you hold a penny in your hand, do not dismiss it as worthless change, do not overlook it as a simple piece of currency, because within that coin may lie history, rarity, and possibility beyond imagination, and in that moment you will realize what collectors have always known, that every coin carries a story, and some stories are worth far more than money. The 1993 penny is proof of this truth, a coin that has crossed the line from ordinary to legendary, from currency to treasure, from metal to myth, and it stands today as a reminder that greatness often comes in the smallest of forms. And as the story of the 1993 cent continues to unfold, with each new discovery and each new collector who joins the search, its legend will live on, a legend that whispers of hidden treasures, of overlooked wonders, and of the eternal truth that sometimes the smallest coin can carry the greatest fortune.